Namaste. I'd like to welcome you to my heart, to the Temple of Kriya Yoga this afternoon, and our noon meditation, Krishna Jayanti. To begin the meditation, I'd like to start with a short prayer. So if you could please come to a comfortable seated position. May the infinite Lord of life, of love, and of laughter bless you at this moment. May each cell of your being, each petal of your mind be touched, be healed, be harmonized. May vim, vigor, and vitality be yours. May love and laughter be yours. May you truly find that which you seek, and may you find that which you seek surely, swiftly, and most harmoniously. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We think we live in the physical world, but we really don't. We think we live in a world of emotions and thoughts, but we don't. Our true world is the world of Atma. The rest is illusion. By beginning to understand Atma, we begin to move to the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is bliss. Another word for bliss is Krishna Consciousness. Another way of saying it is Christ Consciousness. Another way of saying it is Cosmic Consciousness. And I suppose the final way is balanced self-conscious awareness, and that's the one that I like the best. We need to understand this idea of balanced self-conscious awareness. Now, it's been taken for granted by the modern scientific world that almost every civilization and traditional society that has existed has believed that there are many forms of consciousness in the universe. It's not just ours, not just those of the animals. These civilizations have assumed that the entire universe is conscious. And unlike the modern world, they believe that this consciousness is not located at some particular region of the brain, or some electrical impulses going from one part of the brain to another. These cultures have seen consciousness in a completely different way than we see it today. And the reason why these people in these ancient cultures, and many people today outside the scientific community think that there are many forms of consciousness beyond our own is simply because they've experienced it. They've experienced other states of consciousness. They've done it through mystical experiences, through altered states of consciousness, and through their own or our own spiritual practices. So if I say we, them, they, we've actually had the experience. So the scientists can say what they want, but the reality of what we know is different than what the scientists say or try and say. Sir Alistair Hardy in the 1960s started the Religious Experience Research Unit, and this was at Oxford in Britain. He asked people in Britain if they had had any experiences that seemed to involve a conscious presence greater than their own, some type of mystical experience. It was just an experiment that he was performing, asking the question. He was astonished when thousands of reports poured in. It turns out that these experiences were very common. They were common in the world then, they were common in the world in the ancient days, and they are common in the world today. More common than scientists had previously thought. Now, this, I suppose, is to be expected, because someone would say, you hear so little about it. Well, the reason you hear so little about it, people having experiences or these mystical experiences, is simply because when they have the experience, they don't tell anybody. They don't announce it. They don't announce it because they have fear. Fear of being ridiculed, be told they're crazy or something like that. So many people have religious experience, what we would call religious experiences. They have experiences that they can't explain. Many, many, many people. Probably more than we might care to admit to. But anyway, they've had these experiences, but they don't talk about them. I remember when I was teaching in school here, and I've told this, I know I've told this many times, but I think it's important that when I taught the class, meditation classes, I would go in the first day, explain how to do the meditation, the technique, a simple technique, and either the following week or maybe 2 weeks later, very frequently, I would get someone come up to me after the class, before the class, the next week before the class, they would come in. And they would talk to me and they say, boy, you know, I was doing the exercise that you gave, the technique that you gave, and when I did it, all of a sudden I had this feeling that I was part of the universe, that there was this awareness that came to me, not only that there was something greater than me, much, much greater than me, much, much more important than me, but also there was kind of a feeling that I was a part of it. So they would explain this to me, they would talk to me, and I would just say, yes, I agree. And I says, yes, that's true. That means that you're, what I would say is, you're doing the technique correctly. You're doing it the right way, because that is the experience that you're looking for. So the truth is, most people have had experiences, awarenesses of consciousness that's greater than their own. Now, some would call it cosmic consciousness, some would call it Christ consciousness or Krishna consciousness. It's all just states of consciousness. It's a bliss state, or something I might say is a Brahmic bliss state. And it's common, if you do any type of meditation, to have this experience. Plato, in his book, The Timaeus, talks about the conscious universe. And what he says in the book is, this world came to be, in very truth, a living creature with soul and reason. A single, visible, living creature containing within itself all living things, whose nature is of the same order. Now, Plato is expressing a vision of the entire cosmos as a living being. He's saying that it's a living organism. And this kind of view was inherited by the medieval philosophers in Egypt, in Europe also. Aristotle taught that all living beings have souls. So plants have souls, animals have souls, the planets have souls. Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, those planets have souls. The stars have souls. And in fact, the Greeks, according to Plato, called the stars and the planets and the suns the visible gods. These are what we could see, and they were the visible gods. So it's, I guess, suggesting there's something behind that the truth is that even to this very day, we still call the planets by the names of the gods and goddesses that the Greeks, that the Romans gave to us. Venus, Mars, Mercury, and so on. Those are the planets' names, and those are the names of the gods that existed. So, from ancient times up until a couple hundred years ago, a few hundred years ago, the universe, nature was alive. Everything was alive. The earth is alive. The planets, the stars were alive, are alive. They're all, and by alive, what they meant was they're conscious beings. Different consciousness than we are. It's different than what our experiences are. The consciousness is different. In other words, these ancient people, up until recently, it was believed that Mars was conscious. It had a consciousness to it. And that consciousness was different than our consciousness. The animals have consciousness. The plants have consciousness. Those consciousnesses are different than our consciousness, but it is consciousness nevertheless. It's something that, so to speak, exists behind whatever it is that's physically there. You have a physical plant, a rose, a flower, whatever the case might be. And there's something about the plant that makes it alive. And it's more than just some mechanical equation that you can come up with that says, oh yeah, it's alive, but it's just a mechanical thing. It's just a robot, or the people. In fact, there are some philosophers of modern times that say that human beings are nothing but lumbering robots. The implication that there's a consciousness that exists there, but it's relatively meaningless, and the truth is that we're all automatons, just robots. In that belief, what they would say is that when we're born without a consciousness. It's just something that begins at birth. As we grow, we learn, we have experiences, and we kind of call those experiences and collect them together in the brain, and somehow the brain has these electromechanical, chemical processes, and these electrical processes or electrochemical processes create imprints on the brain, and that's what we remember as our memory. And it's all just mechanical. That's all it is, according to modern day philosophers, modern day scientists. And when the body dies, the consciousness dies with it. Now, of course, we know different, right? I want to say if you're rational, you understand that there's something that exists beyond that. And I've even heard, or I'm aware of, scientists, atheists, who have had experiences, because a lot of times we'll have a trauma in our life. And even the die-hard skeptics of this idea of consciousness will have an experience that shakes them and shakes them up. And they'll say, well, something happened. And over time, they kind of rationalize it and that, but you can tell when the experienced person happens, when the way they explain it, the way they talk about it, that they know there's something funny that happened. And it's something that was funny that exists beyond the physical body, the physical brain, the physical mind, and there's something there. Today is Krishna Jayanthi, and I'd like to talk a little bit today about meditation, and talk a little more deeply about this idea of consciousness and awareness. But before I do that, since it is a special day about dealing with Krishna, I thought it might be worthwhile to add just a few comments regarding Krishna and the fact that Krishna is a avatar of Vishnu. An avatar, of course, is an incarnation, not a reincarnation, but an incarnation of a god onto the physical earth. And Vishnu, the great god, part of the Trinity, part of the Hindu Trinity, looks and has this awareness that in the world that exists today, there's forces that have evolved and come up. I suppose I would say these forces are due to the ignorance of man and men and mankind. Anyway, the entities, the people on the earth plane go off on a wrong track. The priesthood goes off on a wrong track. And there's an awareness on a divine level, a super conscious level of beings that exist above the physical plane, that something needs to be done. And so an avatar is sent to eradicate the evil forces and to reestablish the Dharma. For the maybe lack of a better way of saying it is to reestablish the truth. And that's the Dharma. Sometimes this Dharma has to be reestablished, and then it has to be reestablished again, and then it has to be reestablished again. In other words, the avatars have to come once, and then they have to come twice, and then they have to come a third time, again and again and again and again, etc. And so we have avatars of Vishnu, and of the 10 avatars we're celebrating Krishna. Krishna is the 8th avatar in the lineage. So sometimes the avatars are sent by request of the gods to protect or to manage the creation. I think that's an interesting way of saying it. Sometimes the avatars are sent just to reestablish a new priesthood. In other words, a leadership that has to be corrected, that deals with spirituality and the spiritual path of life and people on this earth. And the priesthood needs to be set straight so that it can establish a Dharma gauge. The Dharma, the gauge, and this meaning, here's what you do to get back on the path. And the primary technique through the priesthood that is passed on to us is austerity. And it is through the austerity that we are able to liberate the worthy ones, or the devotees that exist from the cycle of birth and death, from the cycle of reincarnation. We're talking about Krishna, and one of the key forms of literature where we learn about Krishna and we understand Krishna is with the Bhagavad Gita. And so I have my Gita with me, and I'd like to just read from chapter 4, verses 5 through 9, where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. Krishna is the symbolic God, and Arjuna is the symbolic man. Arjuna, you and I have lived many births. This is surely not the first. You do not remember the past in the least. I remember all, for I am the supreme priest. Though unborn, yet am I immortal, Lord of all that breathes. I manifest through my own divine potency, for I am always master triumphantly. When goodness grows weak, when ignorance is no longer bleak, I make and send forth a new body to aid and comfort all who seek. In every age I incarnate the ignorance of the foolish to abate, to give illumination to the holy sage, and to reestablish the Dharma gauge. That soul who knows the nature of my holy birth and of my task never again incarnates into pain, for he walks with me the holy Dharma lane. So obviously, these passages from the Gita deal with incarnation and reincarnation, incarnation of the Godhead into the earth plane and the reincarnation of man. Again, symbolically, Arjuna speaking. Arjuna, you and I have lived many births. That speaks for itself. You do not remember the past in the least. And so he's saying to Arjuna, Arjuna is the symbolic man, so in other words, it's you and me. So when Krishna is speaking, in the book he's speaking to Arjuna, but in life he's speaking to all of us beings that have incarnated or reincarnated onto this planet. You do not remember the past. He's acknowledging that something has happened that has resulted in us forgetting, and us forgetting where we came from and who and what we are and what our purpose is. Though unborn, yet I am immortal. So he's immortal. Talking, Krishna again talking, saying he's immortal, which has to do with us. I mentioned earlier that modern science, and by modern science I'm going back, talking about something that existed for the past 300 years, or goes back 300-400 years. Really, it was the 17th century that was the turning point. And that was when in my opinion, we ran off the rails. We got off the track in this particular age. It was the age of the scientific age, the modern age of mechanisms, and the age where we could calculate the orbits of the planets. We could calculate the density of materials that exist. We could study the atom, and we could study the galaxies and the planets, and understand their movements and things like that. And so we were in the scientific age, and it got to a point where man in his arrogance believed that we knew everything that there was to know in a general sense. All we had to do was kind of fill in the blanks here and there. And along with this belief came the idea that consciousness is something that doesn't exist. It's non-existent. That's where the science is today. They believe that when we're born is when the consciousness starts to manifest within us. We live our life, things build, and we have memories and things like that that are imprinted on the brain, and that's how we remember through this, as I mentioned earlier, this electrochemical process. It's a silly and rather ignorant way to view things, but it is as it is. And so our job is to move past all of that and to understand that to understand that there is something beyond our physical being that exists and that we are. It's called Atma. You and I are Atma. You and I are spirit. And the spirit is eternal. It lasts forever into the past, and it lasts forever into the future. It is eternal, and it is what we are. I mentioned that the gods send down avatars periodically. There are 10 avatars of Vishnu that occur over a period of time. The period of time is, the way you can think of it is, it's like a day in the life of God or something of that nature. And you say in this one period of time that a series of 10 avatars are sent. Now the period of time is if you add it up, the cycle is 4,320,000 years. That's a Mahayuga. A yuga is the cycle of time. So we talk about yugas. The first yuga is the yuga of Satya or Kritya yuga. The second age is Dwarpa yuga, Treta yuga, and the third age is Dwarpa yuga and then Kali yuga. And we are living in Kali yuga at that time, at this time. And in Kali yuga, it was, according to the Hindu tradition, started in 3102 BCE. So that's about 5,000 years ago. And the Kali Yuga lasts 432,000 years. So take 5,000 minus, and Kali Yuga is the age of ignorance, the age of darkness, the age of pain and suffering. So you take 432, subtract 5,000 from that, and you get an idea of about where we are in the cycle, which isn't very far. And we've got a ways to go to get out of Kali Yuga. Now some people have said that, I've heard that it's a couple thousand years, and that actually we're coming into Dwarpa Yuga now. That is out of the Kali Yuga. And I would say, well, what it has to do is that has to do with cycles within cycles. In other words, there's a major cycle that we're going through, and it's there. That's the 432,000 cycle. But within that, there's smaller cycles where we have good and bad times. And so it depends on which cycle you're talking about, whether you're talking about in hundreds of thousands of years or just thousands of years. And so the Atma picks up a physical body. The physical body lives, born, it lives and it dies. And then after it dies, it has another existence for a period of time, and then eventually the physical body is born, it lives and it dies, and this process is just repeated. It's the incarnational cycle. As Krishna was talking to Arjuna in the Gita, as I stated earlier, a few moments ago. And Krishna, the symbolic God, was trying to convey to Arjuna the symbolic man, which is me and you. So the divinity that exists within us, which is the consciousness that exists within us, is trying to convey to us, to transmit to us, that we exist in the physical body for a period of time. We have the incarnation, but it's not a single incarnation. It happens over and over and over again until something in our awareness, something in our mind tells us, hey, gosh, I've been going through this over and over again. What's up? What's the story? What's next? So to speak, we get tired of the cycle of incarnation. And at that point, we say you're on the path. You've gotten on the path because you're looking for something beyond the physical thing. I think Kriyananda might say something like, he looks around and he sees everybody taking a permanent residence. I think he might say it that way. And if he doesn't say it, I guess I'll say it. I look around and I see everybody is taking a permanent, looks like they're taking a permanent residence. And whether you know it or not, like the physical body is not permanent, the physical earth is not permanent, and the solar system is not permanent. It has cycles that of existence also, and at some point it's going to die, maybe sooner than we think. And so what we want to do is stop that rebirth cycle. And how do you do it? Well, we do it through, or the path towards ceasing that cycle of return, the eternal cycle of return, is through the mystical techniques that we learn in yoga and other mystical schools. And one of the techniques that we can do, and I'd like to do it with you now, is to do the Om mantra, and then just like to chant Om. We'll do it 3 times, chant the mantra 3 times, and then there's 3 questions that I want to ask that go along with this and give you something to think about and meditate on in the week or coming weeks. So if you come to a comfortable seated position, you turn your head to the left, double exhale, bring your head forward, inhale, and then chant Om. And we'll chant it a second time. And then a third time. Now, after I chanted the Om, I sat in silence for a few moments. And as with all the mystical techniques, what you do is you do the technique, and you do that technique with effort. So you're chanting the Om with effort. And we chanted it 3 times. And I jokingly say, but actually it's very serious, that there's actually a 4th Om there. You may not realize it, but when you stop chanting, if you listen and if you do this technique long enough, what you'll eventually do is you'll hear a 4th Om that occurs. And what happens is you have really 4 states of consciousness that you work with. And that's what the 4 letters AUMM represent, as the 4 states of consciousness. The first state of consciousness that exists is the awakened state. We're aware of the physical body, the awakened state. The second state of consciousness is in the sleep state. And so when you go to sleep at night and you have a dream, you move into the second state, the dream state. That's the second state of consciousness. And then you have the third state of consciousness, and what they would, in the third state of consciousness is what they call the dreamless sleep state of consciousness. In other words, you stop dreaming and then there's a state of consciousness. Now, there's a fourth state, and that fourth state is beyond those three, and that's when everything ceases, everything stops, and you connect with the reality that you are. You connect with the Atma that you are. Atma is a four-letter word. Like Om is a four-letter word, and two of the letters are repeated. So there's a relationship that exists there between Om and Atma. Now, I said there's three questions that I'm going to ask, and the first one is, when you moved into the technique, or when you were moving into the technique, I said you turn your head to the left, double exhale, bring your head forward, close your eyes, and then you bring your attention to that point between the eyes at the root of the nose. Well, the question is, well, where was your attention before you brought it there? Did you ever think about that? It's an important question. It may sound silly. Where was your consciousness before you brought it to the sun center, the Ajna chakra, that point between the eyes at the root of the nose, and started to focus your attention there? That's the first question. Maybe getting a little silly, but was it in your brain? Maybe was it in the right shoulder? Maybe that's where it was at. So you brought it from there over to your point between the eyes at the root of the nose. Or how about this? Was it in your garage? Is that where your consciousness, maybe the bedroom, maybe it was over in the room next to this room, maybe that's where my consciousness was. Or someplace else. Where was the consciousness before you brought it to that point between the eyes at the root of the nose, the sun center, the Ajna chakra? Where was it? I'm asking the question and suggesting that over the next week, or maybe the next few weeks, or whatever, maybe even beyond that, think about it, meditate on it. Where was your consciousness? Second question is, when you're chanting the Om, as you're chanting the Om, what happens to your consciousness? While it's there, what is happening to your consciousness? Is it getting tired and going to sleep? Is it hungry, going out for a sandwich? When you're chanting the Om, what is your consciousness doing? That's the second question. Where was it before? Now that you know where it, now that you brought it to the point, the Ajna chakra, what is it doing? Does it stay there, or does it go somewhere else? What's it doing? And then there's a third question dealing with the consciousness. And this is just a general question. What is it? What is the consciousness? Okay, maybe the way I said it was you bring your attention, your conscious attention. I'm kind of linking that together as words, but whether it's your attention, by attention I mean your consciousness. Where is your conscious attention at when you bring it to point? And again, the third question is, what is it? What is this thing called consciousness? And I'm suggesting again in the next week or in the next coming couple of weeks to meditate on those questions and on that question. What is it? If you start to meditate on it, some very interesting and I think marvelous things start to happen in the head, in the mind, and what's going on. Now, as I'm doing this, when I'm kind of on the side implying suggesting, and I've actually stated it, but now I'm kind of bringing it to your attention, to your consciousness. Is the consciousness inside the physical body like modern science believes? Maybe you believe in modern science. Or is it outside the physical body, which in the more spiritual realms is what we believe, that the consciousness that you are exists, and it exists outside the physical body. Now that's only half true. It exists inside the physical body, true, too, but it's both inside and outside the physical body. And maybe I'm answering my questions, and I'm supposed to be leaving it open for you to meditate on and you to come with the answers to. But how about if I say it this way? Meditate on it and see if you come to the same conclusions that I come to when I meditate and think about it, and have the realizations come into my mind of what's going on around me and with my consciousness. That it exists within me, but it also exists without me. It's kind of like an electric field or a magnetic field. You know, a magnet, the magnetic field exists inside the magnet, but it also exists around the magnet. And so your consciousness exists around the magnet. Your consciousness exists inside the magnet. It's an analogy, but it's, I think, a good analogy. And then I suppose the next question would be, well, okay, if it's outside of the body, how far outside of the body does it exist? And I'm suggesting, yes, it is outside the physical body. And where does it exist outside the physical body? It exists everywhere. It exists everywhere at all times. The Atma is eternal, and it's everywhere at all times, and it exists. The thing is, when we incarnate, the incarnation causes the consciousness, or a result of the incarnation is that we lose awareness of our consciousness, and we start to become aware of the mind-body complex, and we get lost in it. We get lost in the mind-body complex to the point where we think that we are the mind and the body, and we've forgotten that we're the spirit which exists everywhere, and that this mind-body complex is a minuscule, meaningless, almost meaningless nothingness compared to what the spirit is, and what the spirit is capable of doing for us to help us in our evolution in this world, and our evolution in our spiritual life, both the spiritual life and the physical life. Now, I was saying that what happens is the mind starts to vibrate. So the consciousness, which is not a physical thing, it exists everywhere, always. The Atma that you are, it is the spirit that you are. It exists everywhere and always. However, there's a link that exists between the physical body and the mind starts to vibrate, and the mind vibrates out in the energy, and there's a field that goes out, and that field can interact with other beings, those strange things called people out there. And the mind does start to vibrate. When it vibrates, it becomes magnetic. If in the mind you're thinking, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, pretty soon the physical body becomes hungry and it wants something to eat, and it goes out and gets a sandwich. Or a better example is the mind thinks, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. And it starts vibrating, and the vibration of happiness starts to soak into not only the mind, but the brain and the physical body. Like when we chant Om, that creates a vibration. when we chant the Om, it causes the body to vibrate to the Om vibration, and that's fed back into the consciousness that we are. I'm doing the other half of the cycle, which is we physically chant a mantra, in the Om mantra, or in the case that I'm talking about, happiness, I want happiness, and it magnetizes the physical mind-body complex, and what happens is happy people start coming into our life. Or if we're unhappy and the mind starts thinking, oh, I'm sad, or I'm angry that I'm sad. How about that? And you start chanting that mantra in the head, in the mind, what happens is the whole mind and body become a magnet, and it starts attracting the like-minded souls, which are unhappy and angry. And you wake up and you look around and you're surrounded with angry, unhappy people. I'm telling you something extremely important about how your mind works, how the physical world works, and the mechanisms that are happening. You literally are magnetizing whatever's in your mind, you're magnetizing it, and that's what you're going to draw into your life. If you magnetize your life to positive things and good things, and how about this, gaining wisdom, which is ultimately want to do. That's my favorite mantra, wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. You know, knowledge is good, we want knowledge, and maybe it's a good thing to chant knowledge every once in a while, but at the end of the day, it's wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. And what happens is the wisdom, the struggle for the attainment of wisdom will bring in the knowledge, and it'll bring in the wisdom with it. And it'll bring people that around you that are wise souls. You'll be magnetizing your whole mind-body complex to make that attraction. And and there's an interaction which occurs. You know, this vibration, I call it a vibration or a resonance that occurs. Your whole system is resonating towards positive thoughts or negative thoughts, whatever you choose. And that brings positivity in life, into your life, or negativity into your life, one way or the other. But it happens. And so anyway, with those thoughts, I would like to say just one other thing, which is just really, it's adding to what I said. When you meditate, when you live your life, when you move through your life, what you want to do is take and move the consciousness that you are up about 2 feet above your head, and about 1/2 foot behind you. And this is just another technique that you can do. And you put your consciousness there. Obviously, it's outside the physical body. So your consciousness is there, and just simply watch what is the physical body doing. And use your consciousness to watch. What are your thoughts thinking? What's the mind doing? What's the physical body doing? And just watch throughout the day. What is it doing? You're cleaning the house, watch it clean the house, and watch what is the mind thinking as you're cleaning the house. You watch it if you're at work and you're busy doing your mathematical or whatever assembly, putting something together, whatever it is that you might be doing at work, you watch what is the mind thinking, watch what is the physical body thinking. And if you do that, it's an interesting exercise. You'll have awarenesses that come into the mind, to your consciousness, not to your mind, but into your consciousness, that are enlightening. They bring you towards that path of balanced self-conscious awareness or Krishna consciousness or Christ consciousness that we're working towards. And so one thing that I do have to, now that I've said that, to say that I think is important, I hope it's obvious, but I have to say it. When you're doing this technique and you're moving your head up and all of that, you don't do that while you're driving your car, okay? I think it's obvious, but I have to say it. If you're operating some machinery of some kind that's around you, or driving machine or whatever it might be, you don't want to be doing your mystical technique. You want to focus on the task at hand, so to speak. So I have to say that to make sure that that message gets across. There's times when to do the technique, there's times when not to do the technique, to pay attention to what you're involved in. So anyway, it's an interesting thing, and you've moved your consciousness outside the physical body and it's watching what you're doing. As much as you can, you want to do that. And then watch the interactions that are occurring as you do this. And watch what's going through your mind as you interact with people in this technique that I'm suggesting that you do. And all with the purpose of understanding or answering the three questions that I started with. Where is your consciousness before the chanting? Where does your consciousness go, or what is it doing during the chanting? What is it doing? Where is it going? And then the final question is, what is this thing that we call consciousness? And again, going and getting back to that. And with that, I'll close the meditation this afternoon and wish you a very happy Krishna Jayanti as you walk the path towards balanced self-conscious awareness. May the infinite Lord of life, of love, and of laughter bless you at this moment. May each cell of your being, each petal of your mind be touched, be healed, be harmonized. May vim, vigor, and vitality be yours. May love and laughter be yours. May you truly find that which you seek. And may you find that which you seek surely, swiftly, and harmoniously. Most, most, most harmoniously. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Nandalala